Hey everyone, someone asked me this week, how is Bitkey, which is this little device right here, it's about the size of my ear, I suppose, how is Bitkey more secure than storing Bitcoin on a website or a mobile app such as PayPal or Venmo or Cash App or Square or Robinhood or Coinbase or any of those things? So let's talk about that. All right, so the first way is that security involves here. I'll keep it in the video, so hopefully the preview will show it. Security involves one of three things. One, something you know, such as a password. Two, something you have, such as your smartphone or a chip in a credit card or something like that, or a key, like a physical metal key, or something you are, like a fingerprint or the shape of your face for a face scan or something like that. So, why is a Bitkey, this thing I'm holding here, why is Bitkey more secure than a mobile app? Well, let's talk about how mobile apps secure your Bitcoin. They typically secure your Bitcoin using a password and also two-factor authentication, which is a code that they send to your phone. Sometimes it is actually more secure, rather than just a code to your phone, to use an authenticator app. Like there's a variety of them. Microsoft has one, Google has one, Authy has one. There's a variety of them. But an authenticator app gives you a code. So it's two-factor authentication. One of those, which is your password, is something that you know, which is your password. One of those is something that sort of is a substitute for something you have, like a code on your phone. But the problem is the code on your phone goes to whoever controls your phone number. So if somebody can sweet talk your service provider, your cell phone service provider, into giving them a code, into porting your number to a new device, then they have the ability to get the code when you don't have it. So if you have T-Mobile, AT&T, Verizon, anyway, Cricket, whatever you got, if somebody calls that service provider and is able to sweet talk them into porting your number to their device, that means when the two-factor authentication is triggered, that the two-factor authentication will come to a device they control rather than you control. So as a result of that, it's potentially dangerous. And even if you use an authenticator app like Google Authenticator, if it's tied to your Google account and someone gets access to your Google account, then if your authenticator app is backed up to your Google account, what that means is your authenticator app is going to be able to be sort of regenerated by a hacker. So, and you should always assume that your password for any device, any service or website will get leaked. And the reason for that is that hackers are just very clever at getting you to accidentally enter your password. They send you emails saying, click here to authenticate, to confirm your password. They often will reach out to you saying that you've received a fraudulent charge on your credit card or on Venmo, and you need to log into this website to cancel the charge. Anyway, hackers are just very, very, very good at getting you to accidentally copy and paste your password into some place you shouldn't, or to enter your password somewhere you shouldn't, or to somehow get access through some hacked website to your password. And if you use the same password on any two websites, then if they hack one, they get access to the other as well. So as a result of that, you should always assume that your passwords, even though they should all be unique, and you should be using a password manager app, even though all of that is true, you should assume that that is only your first line of defense, and that your password will ultimately, you need to assume it's at risk. So two-factor authentication, like a code that is sent to your phone or an authenticator app, is fantastic. And most of the time, that is plenty of security. And for most websites and everything else, that is good enough. So why then does something like Bitkey, this incredible little device here that I'm holding, again, that's the size of it. It's about the size of it's smaller than my palm. In real life, it actually looks smaller than it looks on the video. Here, I'll show you if on my palm, there you go. It's just a very small little thing that's, anyway. So the Bitkey device gives you the security, not just of something you know, but something you have and something you are. So in order to use Bitkey, you have to, once you move your Bitcoin to Bitkey, which is super simple, it only takes a minute or two, super, super simple. In order to move the Bitcoin, you have to have something you know, which is a password, something you have, which is the Bitkey device, and something you are, which is the fingerprint reader, which is this little place on the Bitkey device. So if I put my fingerprint on the Bitkey device, it will, there you go, it will turn green if it's got the right fingerprint. Now, this is a demo device, and I just set it up with my left thumb for this demo device purposes, because then I could use my left hand to hold the device and the right hand to hold my camera, and it was just easier that way. So anyway, but it's only paired, you can pair it to up to 3 fingers, which allows you to pair it to, for example, one of your fingers and maybe one of your significant other's fingers, so that in case you pass away or something like that, there's a way that they can unlock it, even though there's incredible recovery built in. So even if you do, there's a million ways where if you lose the device, you can you can restore the password with a recovery process through Block, the company that makes this, which is Square. They make payment terminals, and it's run by Jack Dorsey, one of the co-founders of Twitter. So anyway, you can, if you lose the device, you can restore through a 7-day waiting process with a lot of authentication. If you lose your phone, you can do the same thing with the device. And if you lose your device and the phone, Bitkey device and your phone simultaneously, you can restore using an encrypted copy of your password that is stored in your iCloud account, and that has to be authenticated by one of your trusted contacts to make sure that even if your iCloud account is hacked, that nobody has access to it. So essentially, the tagline of Bitkey is easy to use, hard to lose. And they have absolutely nailed that. They've made this device incredibly easy to use and literally nearly just completely impossible to accidentally lose your Bitcoin. So the reason using Bitkey is more secure is to move your Bitcoin requires 3 things. Something you know, a password, something you have, the Bitkey device, and something you are, which is a fingerprint reader. And it is virtually impossible for a hacker to get access to all those 3 things. It's just virtually impossible. Now, that does not mean you can't get conned or scammed by somebody convincing you to move your Bitcoin, but they have to convince you to send the Bitcoin to an address, put your fingerprint on the fingerprint reader, and then unlock the device. They have to, convince you to hold it to the back of your phone, and then you have to have your password to access it. So the probability that a hacker is going to be able to do all of those things without you is 0, because they actually need the physical access to the Bitkey device and they don't have it. And the probability that that they can convince you to do that is much, 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 much harder than convincing you to accidentally give up your password somehow, and then convincing your mobile service provider to do what's called a SIM swap, which is when they port your phone number to another phone. So as a result of that, having Bitcoin stored in the Bitkey device is more secure than having it on Robinhood, PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, Coinbase, all of them. And, it's just nothing is as secure as this. Now, a good in-between step is Coinbase has something called Coinbase Vault, which allows you to put a 48-hour lock on Bitcoin. So you can take I always recommend between 70% and 90% of your Bitcoin is in cold storage. So if you're using Coinbase, you can use the Vault feature. And then in order to move the Bitcoin, there's a 48-hour waiting period. So if somebody does hack your account, you're getting multiple alerts saying, hey, we just want to confirm you do want to move your Bitcoin. Are you sure? So that way you can just cancel it if you get, a hacker gets access to your account or something like that. You have the ability to cancel it before the Bitcoin actually moves with that 48-hour waiting period. But still, nothing's going to be as secure as a physical device that requires that something you are, a fingerprint, something you have, the Bitkey device, and something you know, which is a password. So anyway, for all those reasons, Bitkey is the most secure thing out there. There are ways to secure other accounts. For example, Coinbase supports YubiKey and things like that. But again, you're just never going to get as secure as something like Bitkey, especially if what you care about, I guess maybe the caveat here is, especially if you want complete control of your money. So anytime someone else controls your money, they have the ability to turn it off, or they have to, could be required by a judge or something like that to not allow access to funds if there's a lawsuit or a dispute, or they can get an order from a judge to freeze or something like that. Any platform you keep your Bitcoin on is required to comply with things like that. And so you could just wake up one day and find out that you're not allowed to move your Bitcoin, even though you thought you were. And with something like Bitkey, you don't have to worry about that because it's called self-custody, which means there's literally nothing in the world that can keep you from moving your Bitcoin if you want to move your Bitcoin. It's just self-custody is completely autonomous and independent, and there's no way to stop it whatsoever without sort of physically arresting you or something like that. So anyway, it's a great way to avoid scammers, avoid hackers, and avoid a situation where your Bitcoin, wires get crossed or your name ends up on, some list because it's similar to a name of somebody else, and suddenly you temporarily have your funds frozen or something like that. So anyway, for a bunch of reasons, Bitkey is safer and more secure than any other option, which is why I recommend it to people. One thing that does happen when people first put Bitcoin on something like Bitkey is if they're comfortable with another platform, it always makes them a little nervous. They always feel like, wait, I'm moving my Bitcoin over, but this thing just doesn't feel like what I'm used to. Well, that is totally normal. But if, I guess if it gives you any comfort, the company behind it, again, is a very, very reputable publicly traded company, which is the company Square, Block, formerly known as Square. And you just have more, the likelihood you're going to wake up one day and think, something's wrong with my Bitcoin is just lower if it's secured in a way that you are the only person on the world that can control. Nobody can stop you from moving it. Nobody can stop you from spending it. It's just completely self-custody. And to move it requires something you are, something you have, and something you know, all three, which is a hacker's worst nightmare. A hacker's worst nightmare is having to try to hack something that is using something you are, something you have, and something you know, which is the way Bitkey does it. A hacker's dream is for a username and password to be the only way that they need to move to move Bitcoin, because they will eventually get that password one way or another if they try hard enough. And so, so their dream is to have that, as a backup. They have to work way harder to try to get your phone number SIM swapped so that the two-factor authentication comes to them instead of to you, or they have to try to scam you by being on the phone with you and convincing you to read them the two-factor authentication code, which is typically what they'll do. They'll try to get you to read the two-factor authentication code. If they have your password, they'll call you and they'll try to scam you into reading the two-factor authentication code to them, even though the text message that you get from Venmo or wherever else will say, do not read this code to anyone. People still do it because they're live on the phone and they don't read the text message that comes through. They just read the code to the person on the phone. But again, if you got something like Bitkey, you don't have to worry about that because moving your Bitcoin is, requires something you have, something you know, and something you are, which is the most secure way to secure stuff. And in the case of Bitkey, it gives you complete and total self-sovereignty over your Bitcoin. So if it feels sort of foreign or you're not sure because you think, this just feels so new and so different, then I would say, A, that's totally normal, and B, start small. Move a little bit of your Bitcoin over. Get comfortable with it. Get comfortable with the features of Bitkey. Get comfortable with how it works. Read about it on their website. Read about it in their frequently asked questions until you get more comfortable. And as you get more comfortable, move more of your Bitcoin over to Bitkey as your comfort level builds, which frankly is the exact same way that people on-ramp to Bitcoin, right? I mean, nobody wakes up one day and buys, converts all of their, savings and net worth into Bitcoin. Nobody does that all at one time. In my case, for my liquid assets, I've got 96% in Bitcoin, and the other 4% are in stocks, bonds, and get there all at one time. I got there little by little over the course of 7 years since 2017. It's now 2024. So I got to 96% Bitcoin total, and the vast majority of that is in cold storage. It is not on a website or app that could be hacked by someone somewhere else. But anyway, but that level of my net worth was put in Bitcoin little by little, and the same way with where Bitcoin is. Once you have a lot of your net worth Hope this helps. As always, hit me up with any questions. Text me 601-207-0813. If you have questions, again, 601-207-0813. Bitkey, Bitkey.world, W-O-R-L-D. Bitcoin.world is the website. Anyway, I think it's the best sort of ultra secure cold storage solution for Bitcoin that you don't plan to need to move in at least 6 months or a So that's your quick video for Friday night on Bitkey, why it's awesome, why you should use it, and why something like Bitkey that requires you to know something, have something, and be something, which is your fingerprint, is more secure than any app or website could be. And it also enables you to be completely sovereign, as in you are your own bank and nobody controls your Bitcoin but you, and you can do whatever you want with it whenever you want to. So anyway, that's the really well designed. And again, if you're worried about losing your Bitcoin, they designed the Bitkey device where it's, literally nearly completely impossible for you to accidentally somehow lose your Bitcoin. They thought of everything you could possibly do wrong. They built in some sort of unlock mechanism that it might take a week to do with a 7-day waiting period, but virtually anything you could possibly do wrong with Bitcoin, they thought of, and they built in an elegant and safe way after a 7-day waiting period for you to recover from whatever misstep you might take. But they made this thing really so easy to use that shouldn't be a problem. So enjoy your Bitcoin journey. I'm always here for questions if you have them. Thanks.